Right. Good morning, everyone. Happy 2021. Welcome to our Facebook Live. My name is Mary, and I'm here with Elizabeth. And Siobhan is doing some awesome continuing ed training, so she'll be joining us next time. And our topic today is back to the grind, returning to work. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us here. I think we have
it's great to be back. And I'm so sorry that we had to skip. I think all of us got sick, and yeah. But goodbye 2020. Hello 2021. Yeah. So I'm so happy that we can be here, and hopefully everyone got to take a really nice, restful vacation of some sort, enjoy some time with your family. And we figured that this would be a good time to talk about returning to work, whether it's from a holiday or after having your baby. And, I feel like that's a question I get a lot from folks is, how, and sometimes even during pregnancies, like, how can I plan to breastfeed or chest feed my baby if I know that I'm going to go back to work? Because it's a really overwhelming prospect, the idea of balancing, pumping and working and all of these things. So, I talk a lot of times with folks about this. So first of all, I just want to reassure everyone that, if you want to breastfeed or chest feed your baby and you have to go back to work, that these are totally compatible goals, and we can totally help figure out how to make that work for you. Depending how early you have to go back to work, there's certain different challenges. Mm-hmm. So here in Washington, we should all be able to hopefully take advantage of the 12 weeks paid state leave after having a baby, which is really helpful. Ideally, I would love to see folks getting to take like 6 months or a year off, but that's not realistic. I didn't get to.
One day, hopefully, in this country.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. I went back at 5 weeks with my first and 8 weeks with my second. Mary, did you go back to work after your kiddos?
I did. I went back after I had a good time. I had like 5 months. So,
that's wonderful. Yeah. I'm so happy you got that.
And it was part-time, so it was, but it was a great 5 to 6 months with them. So
that's awesome. Yeah, with my first, I did, as I've shared before, like everything wrong. Not that it's wrong like I'm bad, but I didn't know. I didn't have the information to set myself up well, and so it was a lot of things that accidentally sabotaged myself and my breastfeeding relationship. So that's part of why I get really jazzed up to talk with folks, especially because a lot of us have the kinds of jobs where it's not really an easy transition. Mm-hmm. At the time with my first, I was working in a restaurant. I didn't have any paid leave. I didn't have paid time off. 5 weeks was really a long time for me to be able to take off. It was too much. Financially, it was very stressful. And I had to pump in a bathroom, which is, not ideal. I don't recommend it. Looking back, there's a lot of things I would have done differently. I was still bleeding from childbirth when I went back to work.
Oh, Elizabeth.
Yeah. So, and all of these things contribute to low milk supply. And so I spent a lot of time beating myself up about why am I not breastfeeding well? Well, systems set up.
Yeah. And environmental factors too. I mean, I wish I had systems in place when I was going back to work. It would have definitely made it a lot easier and a lot more doable in my eyes, less kind of crying and just like throwing my hands in the air. Yeah.
So the first thing, I think overall is just recognizing that every single birthing person deserves the time that they need to recover from childbirth first before going back to work. And I also recognize that's not always possible because capitalism.
Because, yes.
I do hope that the state paid leave really helps alleviate some of that. And also I want to encourage folks, if anyone, wants to pop in any comments or anything, please feel free to add those. There we go. I've got the comments available. So we'd love to hear from folks, about your journeys and what that looked like and what was helpful, or, things that were challenging. So first of all, if you have paid leave, please take it. If you're able to take time at home, regardless of how you're feeding your baby, you deserve time at home with your baby, recovering, taking care of yourself.
Absolutely. That's so true. Recovering, yes. And then your baby, and then.
Yeah.
Because there's paid time leave now for fathers too, right? Not as long, or is that not in this state?
That's an excellent question. I actually don't know.
Yeah.
I should have looked that up.
You could look that up. But yeah, that's a great tip, is just take that time for yourself and recover, and that'll only just enhance your breastfeeding situation if you're breastfeeding, or just, overall with your new baby.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, because in general, breastfeeding, like we've talked about, breast and chest feeding is a learned skill. It's like talking. It's like riding a bike. It's all of these things that are socially acquired, and you need time to get that up and rolling. And that often can take, 4 to 8 weeks to get that on a rhythm that feels good, where you're like, yeah, I got this. Things are going good, easy peasy. In the beginning, you're learning how to latch, you're learning how to read baby's cues, you're doing all that stuff. And I would really encourage you to focus on that, so that you're not also trying to be like, I'm learning how to nurse my baby, I'm also learning how to pump, I'm also learning how to sleep while the baby sleeps, I'm also learning how to take care of this new body I have. Let's one thing at a time. We don't have to be superhuman. We deserve rest and care for our bodies, and your body will work better the more you take care of it. So try to, if you're able to, and I recognize that it's an extreme privilege, and that not everyone has this, especially, we talk specifically to our communities, and our communities often are folks who are not in positions where we're able to, take those leaves. So if you are not able to, I just send you so much grace and compassion for that. But if you have that leave, if you have the opportunity, I would strongly, strongly urge you, take that time.
Yeah.
Don't even worry about pumping or going back to work or anything until, at least 6 to 8 weeks, if you can. I really don't like to start people pumping a minimum before 4 weeks, unless there's a clinical indication with baby's weight gain or something. If you get into that, like, you're in your groove, things are good, that's fine. But just one thing at a time. You don't need to learn how to ride a bike and fly a plane all at the same time. So yeah, so we can move on from that, but that's just my shout about that.
And that sets you up, like, mentally and physically, to start the process of pumping once you do return to work, or whatever circumstance that needs you to save up all that extra milk. Also, I think if you don't have that time to take off, the maternity leave, you could I would encourage you to, like, give yourself some grace and just take time out when you do have it. It's okay to rest, especially as a new parent. So, I know we're inclined to just be on the go because there's so many things to do at home, but they'll be there. Just take some time to rest when you can. So, should we get into, like, the systems for?
Yeah, that's great. So the next thing is that when, once you have taken your long, luxurious, meaningful, and necessary recovery time and a returning to work. I really, really like to encourage folks, rather than pushing it all the way to the final day right before you go back, start planning about 30 days in advance. And Mary, do you want to take this part and kind of talk about what that looks like?
Yeah, so 30 days before, or like ideally 30 days before, right? But if you anytime before that is fine. So start pumping once a day on a scheduled break. Maybe mimicking the breaks that you have at work so that your body's used to it. And don't worry about the amount that you're pumping, that you're outputting. It's just to increase the demand and get in the habit of introducing the bottle and, getting your body used to pumping milk. And speak with your caregiver if possible and get them, hip to what you're doing and what your plans are so that everyone's on the same page. Yeah. So, and then do you want to do the 2 weeks before, Elizabeth?
Yeah. And I just want to kind of touch on that really quick is in the event you haven't introduced a bottle yet, and that's totally fine, starting at that about 30 days out can be really helpful. Again, anything to alleviate the stress, right? Like we want to make this whole thing as seamless as possible. So try not to, have things where you're dealing with it all right at the last minute. So, if you haven't introduced a bottle, having, like Mary said, getting your caregiver set up, give yourself some practice runs and go get a Starbucks or, instead of going to work, using that time to, go do something else, but taking little practice runs away from baby, having the caregiver give a bottle so that it's going to be easy peasy. When you go back to work, you have as little concerns as possible.
Yeah. I mean, because you're already going back to work, having to deal with that, getting back into the grind of work, and then leaving your baby. That's a whole thing in itself.
Yeah.
And yeah, you want to just mitigate all the stress. Just take anything off the table that you can.
Yes. And so then when you get, if you were able to start doing that on a small scale, a month out, then at 2 months or 2 weeks out rather, I like to kind of step it up then. So say you were doing a morning pump, you might want to add in another one also during your workday. And what this is to do, again, just to reiterate from what Mary said, this is not about having building a huge stash. It's totally fine. You might be pumping a half ounce. And that's fine, because keep in mind that this is whatever you're pumping is additional on top of what you're feeding baby. And you're just putting away, this is all back stock that you're going to be putting away for when you go back to work, so that you're going to have plenty. You're not going to feel stressed out, and you've got this cushion. And so this is all just extra. This is wonderful, wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
So, adding a second pumping session throughout the day, and just on whatever days you would be going back to work. So if you're going back to work 3 days a week, do it 3 days a week. If you're going back to work 5 days a week, do it 5 days a week. But you please take a break. Take your weekends, take whatever, extra time that you need. Again, we're not here to tell you to kill yourself. So yeah, increase that, those pumping sessions to about, twice a day. This is a great time to go back to your work, your job site, talk to your employer, figure out what pumping is going to look like at work. Because again, you don't want to be blindsided. So if you go back and, or just give your boss a call and say, hey, I just want to check in. I know I'm coming back to work on February 2nd. And is it possible for me to come check out the pumping area? Should we talk about what that schedule is going to look like?
Right.
And just make sure that they're on the same page with you. and that you know what that location is going to look like. You can also ask if you could bring some things in there. You can evaluate the refrigeration, so you know if you're going to need to bring a cooler or if you're going to be able to use a fridge. And if you already know all of this, or you already had these conversations with your boss, then you're one step ahead.
Yeah.
But sometimes these are things that we don't think about. I know, like, I showed up my first day back at work with my giant, I had the big Lactina, like the one that looks like a suitcase.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what am I gonna do? And there are federal regulations that protect you.
Yeah.
So there's some loopholes. So your employer, if your company is larger than 50 employees, your employer is required to provide a place that is not a bathroom, that is private and has a lock for you to pump in. If your employer is under 50 people, they're technically still required to provide this. However, they can say, if they say that it causes undue harm to the business, that's a loophole. So it's not perfect. And your employer, again, over 50 people, has to give you time. They don't have to pay you for it. Again, not perfect.
And capitalism.
Capitalism! Patriarchy! It's true.
It's so true.
Yeah. So if you have under 50 employees, you may want to, like, kind of recognize that might need a little more sweet talking or a little bit more flexibility in figuring it out. However, it is also oh, sorry, Mary, what was that?
I'm so sorry. There was a lot, but yeah, definitely advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid, because this is food, and you know, yeah.
Absolutely. And not only that, it's a health factor. So it is completely unreasonable to expect yourself to go more longer spans of time without pumping than you would without nursing your baby. Because at this point, you have created a schedule of supply and demand in your body. And if you skip one of baby's feeding sessions, you are likely to get clogged ducts and mastitis and all of these other things. This is a health risk. So if your employer is asking you not to take pumping breaks, it is absolutely necessary and vital, and you are in the right to push back and say, this is a need. This is a medical need that I'm having. This needs accommodation. And maybe we need to be creative, but it needs to be accommodated. For sure. So, and the other thing too is that pumping is covered under the same federal regulation that protects nursing mothers and nursing people. So if your employer will not provide a private place for you to pump, and if you are comfortable, you are completely legally covered if you want to pump at your desk, or you want to pump, like, wherever feels good to
you. Yeah.
Yes. So please know that wherever you are within your legal rights to pump in public if you want. Please, like, please don't make you pump in the bathroom. And I've done it a ton. I hate it. If I could go back to 7 years ago me and say, like, come here, let's go, get out of that bathroom. And of course, you know, I totally support anyone doing what makes them comfortable, but please know that you are supported being as public and open as you want. Don't do it for other people.
Yeah, those are your rights, and you're well within your rights.
Yeah. So, you know, just kind of figuring out what that situation looks like. If there's a place in your office or in your job site where you're able to bring little things that will be more cozy, you know, thinking about, how are your feet going to be? Do you need a footstool? Do you need a pillow for your back? Is the lighting harsh and bright and terrible? Can you bring a small lamp or, like, twinkle lights or something? You know, does it smell good? Do you want to bring, you know, like, a diffuser or, you know, something? And depending where you work, of course, there's different We have different capabilities, but
you want to make it as comfortable and
mm-hmm.
as possible, right?
Yeah.
And then I know we talked about this earlier, but having like maybe a picture of your kids or something to raise your oxytocin levels to get those good vibes going, so that your milk is your milk production is good and you're pumping, all lovely levels.
Yeah. And so, Mary, do you want to talk about, we're coming in on the home stretch. It's like a week before you're going back to work.
Right. Oh, so a week before, right. Before you return to work, you want to increase your sessions to about 3 if possible. Make sure you have all your equipment set up, all your bag, your flanges, if you need batteries,
Yes.
yeah, and then maybe an extension cord too, because they don't always work with the space, but just get your bag ready to go, and your bag's ready to go. Yeah. So cooler and an ice pack, some lube. Let's see, what else? Anything else you think?
A hands-free pumping bra, if you're going to be, that's a tool that a lot of people find really helpful, because you may be incorporating your pumping breaks with your lunch break. That's pretty common. Depending how old baby is, you're going to want to be pumping on all of their feeds. So, usually if you're going back for an 8-hour day, that's going to be, probably about 3 sessions. If you're going back when baby's still on that every 2-hour schedule, depending how your milk supply is, you might be able to stretch that to, 2 sessions.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really kind of a individual thing to evaluate. But yeah, so you'll likely be pumping through your lunch break. So, that's just a really common thing that happens. And in general, it's nice to have your hands. So a hands-free pumping bra, or you can take a sports bra and cut slits in it. That's a pretty common life hack. I've seen, and I had a friend who did this, and I thought she was so brilliant. So she did, she just wore a regular sports bra, and then with breast pads, even though she wasn't leaking at the time anymore. But if you have a sports bra with the slits cut in it, and
oh yeah,
so if you're not wearing the breast pad, your nipple's gonna poke through, and then that kind of defeats the whole point of wearing a bra.
Yeah.
But so she just did, just sports bra, breast pad, bingo bambo. And then she was able to put her pump on directly without taking a ton of time, because minimizing the time is really important.
Yeah.
If you are pumping multiple sessions, if it's financially possible, having however many sets of breast shields as times you're going to pump can be really helpful. Again, just minimizing that time spent washing and cleaning. And if you have refrigeration, sometimes folks will, you can just rinse out the breast shield and put it in a Ziploc baggie and back into the fridge. That's a really common pumping hack that people do. I do want to just let folks know that one's no longer recommended by the CDC, just in order to keep things super duper clean.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Whitney. Yay. Oh, I'm so glad that this is helpful.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And so that is, you can do that. I just like to let folks know, so you can choose your own comfort level on what what feels good to you. I always just like to bring a couple sets of flanges and then wash them at the end of the day, because I don't like to do dishes.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. And often, like I said, I often was pumping in bathrooms too. So no way in heck was I going to be washing my baby's breast shields in bathrooms. So like shared restaurant bathrooms.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, so getting all that stuff ready to go beforehand is great. And then there you are, you're back at work. It's the big day. Uh, know that it's very normal when you return to work. Even if you love your job, it's the best job in the world, it's like feeds your soul and you're happy to be there, you will likely physiologically experience a rise in your cortisol and your adrenaline because it's a change and it's stressful and your body experiences stress. Even if you're going back to work at home, I've been talking with a lot of folks who are, just when they're going back to work these days, it's like still working from home, but it's different, right? You still are balancing different things. So we still see this happening sometimes. Your output may be less than you're expecting. And again, that's okay. That's why we did all that work leading up to it. So you're like, oh, that's fine. I only pumped an ounce and baby drank 3, and that's fine. I've got it in the freezer. Don't freak out because it will get back to normal. But when we have adrenaline and cortisol flooding through our body, it's really inhibiting that milk letdown response. And so we're likely to see a reduced output. Mm-hmm. And the crummy thing about this is that, of course, stress feeds stress. So if we stress because we didn't make enough milk, we're going to make less milk.
Right.
So anything we can do to like, oh, it's chill because I've got all that milk in the freezer, that will help you make more milk going forward because you're not going to be stressed about it.
Right.
So, and when you go back to work, anything you can do to keep that stress response as low as possible, acknowledging that it's happening and being, gentle with yourself about it, mm-hmm. giving yourself grace about it, making sure that you're pumping to replace all of baby's feeds. If you're an oversupplier, I would caution you on the opposite end of things. You still want to express on a regular basis on the same rhythm that baby would be nursing, but don't just pump endlessly, because if you're an oversupplier, that's going to drive that excessive oversupply, and that can get really uncomfortable. Right. So you're going to be kind of walking that fine line of continuing to express milk so that you're not getting a backup, you're not getting clogged ducts, you're not getting mastitis, but you're not going to want to pump in such a way that you're like shooting your supply out into the moon. Yeah. So unless you're pumping to donate or something, I would suggest you just kind of, you pump for a more limited amount of time. If you're making a ton of milk, if you're making in way excess of what baby is drinking, you can kind of play it by ear and either pump to match what baby is taking, a little bit more is fine, or cut yourself off on a smaller amount of minutes. If you find that you are pumping less than what baby's needing, please try not to stress out about that. Again, when we're going back to work, that's very, very normal. That stress response is very common. So in that case, don't freak yourself out trying to pump forever and ever, 20, 30 minutes. And then, whatever it is what it is. And then if that is continuing long-term, because some people really don't respond great to a pump. So if you do after a week or 2 weeks and you're not seeing your pumping output match what baby is needing, then, you can definitely reach out to someone. Like you can reach out to us and we can help you come up with a more individualized plan. You can, there's lots of different things we can do. Mm-hmm. We could talk about power pumping at a different time. We could talk about, evaluating your pumping routine, making sure that it's super efficient. Do we need to change your breast shield? There's different kinds of breast shields. There's so much. So please never feel like, well, crap, this sucks. I can't do it. If you want to, and if that is a goal and you need some help getting there, the help exists. So
yes, we have resources for you. And lactation lounges.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we have one coming up after this at 12. So yeah, did we hit all the topics? And is there any questions from you? If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get them answered.
Yeah, this is a time I would love folks who are watching, if you have suggestions to add. This is one of those times when I feel like other people who are currently pumping and back at work or recently returned to work have like just the best stuff to share, because you're like, I just did this and this is what was great for me. So yeah, we'll give everyone a couple minutes, but yeah, that's the key. You know, if I had to really kind of distill it down to a few points, would be like, minimize the stress if possible, pump to replace baby's feeds, and then evaluate from there based on if you're, if you have mega supply, exactly right supply, or if you're, struggling to keep up, then we can adjust it however is necessary. Be gentle on yourself.
Yeah.
Have extra stuff if possible. Like, I'm generally pretty low stuff in when it comes to feeding babies, but actually when you go back to work, I'm all about like, get whatever stuff makes it easier for you. Treat yourself. If you need a 3 new hands-free pumping bras and that's financially doable for you, do it. Oh, Whitney has a question. My question is about breaks on the weekend. Do you just feed your baby to keep up those same 3 sessions you're doing at work? Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you, Whitney. So my guidance on that in general would vary based on what's going on. So if we're doing it leading up to going back to work so that we have that great back stock ready to go and to provide that that peace of mind. And so and then Whitney, so that's a great piece of information. So that's what I was going to say, is then going forward it's really, really individual.
Yeah.
So if you have a really reactive milk supply and you need to keep up the pumping to stay at that level, then that's what's going to work for you. In general, like if you have a well-established supply, then most of the time it's going to be totally fine to nurse your baby whenever you're with your baby and pump to replace their feeds if you're not with them. And once you've created some amount of backstock, then you're always replacing that if you are pumping to replace a feed. But sometimes if we're, some bodies don't love the pump. And so for some folks like that, in my first lactation journey, that was the case for me. If I stopped pumping, my body would be like, I forgot how to do this. So I did have to pump on the weekends. But for the most part, you should be fine to just nurse baby and then go back to work, and then you're pumping to replace their feeds. And that's why we get a backstock in advance. So then we're just replacing the backstock, and we're not, in that constant turnover of like, oh no, what if I don't make enough milk?
Yeah.
I don't know. And Mary, did you have any thoughts on that?
No, that was great. That covered a lot. So.
Whitney, does that answer your question? Did that feel good, or did you need any other clarification on that? Okay, I'm going to take that as yes.
Yeah.
But feel free to type in. Perfect.
Awesome. Great.
Excellent. Oh, and then Mary, when we were chatting earlier, you brought up a great point about snacks. So
yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, you can just in your bag add your snacks there to munch on while you're feeding. And even then I would if you do have time plan those out and prepare them ahead of time. Just throw them in your bag in the morning. I mean, just to get rid of the stress, or just buy them at the store pre-made. I mean, that's the best. So yeah, like what apples or nuts, just very like healthy whole foods. That's what I would pick.
I used to keep in my pumping bag I loved, and you can get the big packs at Costco where the little nut and cheese packs you can get at Costco,
Yeah.
the like Sargento, whatever. I mean, it's not like magically harvested, in my own backyard or whatever, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But it was good because it was like a portion of cheese and nuts and some dried fruit, and making sure you have plenty of water, staying hydrated. It's really, all of these things. Again, it's about setting yourself up to have everything available to you, convenient, trying to that balance between convenience and still taking care of yourself really beautifully, and that's going to look different for everyone. Yeah. I kept salami in my pumping bag a lot because it doesn't need like total refrigeration all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's like I really like salami and string cheese was a very common pumping and nursing snack for me.
It is, and it's very good. I still have that for snacks. So yeah. And then like the trail mixes, I've had that, or sometimes granola bars. Just they're easy and you don't have to worry about them. So
totally, yeah. Any non-perishable snacks. That's another just kind of a random tip I would say all the time. Put non-perishable snacks in your diaper bag, in your pumping bag, in your car, wherever. Yeah. You're going to get hungry. Eventually, baby's going to be eating foods. They're going to get hungry. No one wants to be stuck as a hangry pumping person or with a hangry toddler. Put snacks all the places.
Yes. Yeah. Great tip.
Cool. But yeah, and Mary has Lactation Lounge at 12. So go see Mary if you want some more like individualized. This is just the basics. This is just to give folks, a baseline. We love to have you all come into Lactation Lounge. I had some folks asking, so I want to clarify. Yes, wherever you are, you can come to Lactation Lounge online. That's why it's great that it's online. Whether you're in Washington or New York or Canada or Mexico or
anywhere.
Europe, Australia, Africa, anywhere. If you have the internet and you can get to us, you are welcome in Lactation Lounge.
Yes. The beauty of the internet. Yeah. Well, we'd love to see you there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, then I think we're good to wrap up.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone watching live and watching on the replays. We hope to see you in Lactation Lounge. And like we said, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat, or if you have any tips. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. See ya.